Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Saturday evening to you all. I hope you guys are doing great out there tonight and had yourselves a wonderful day. And I hope everyone's been having a great weekend out there so far. We have a lot to talk about in tonight's video, and I certainly appreciate y'all folks tuning in as we do so. The first thing we will speak on is the latest from this major winter storm that's going to really crank up later tonight into tomorrow morning across areas of the plains and the Midwest. So the first thing we will discuss is the latest watches, warnings, advisories. We even have blizzard warnings out there across like Kansas, Nebraska, even Missouri now. So I'll be honest, I wasn't fully expecting that, but here we are. So we'll go over all that after we get done discussing that. We'll go over the latest information on timing, the evolution of this winter storm over the next 48 hours as it moves across the plains, the Midwest, the Mid-South, all the way to Ohio Valley, and eventually to the Mid-Atlantic. So we'll really zoom into individual areas for that. And then we'll get very, very detailed, like we've been doing with these individual graphics as far as zooming into each state that's going to see the highest impacts from this winter storm. These graphics will show you ice and snowfall totals, the latest from the National Weather Service, so the actual experts from the National Weather Service. And they'll show you town names, city names, and chances are if it doesn't show your town or city name, if you live in like a small town in the Midwest, it'll at least show a larger town or city close to you. So you'll get a really good idea of how much snow and ice you could expect from this setup over the next couple days. After we get done getting very detailed on that, we will speak on the latest on a winter storm threat for the South next week. Confidence is increasing on that. So we'll speak on it, and we'll talk about the Southeast, and models are starting to like the idea of this potentially being a winter storm risk even for the entire eastern seaboard, all the way up into the mid-Atlantic to the Northeast. So there's so much information to go over, and we're going to go over it all. So at the very end of the video, we will discuss some changes we need for certain other areas to get winter weather. Like, for example, where I live here in the Carolinas, I got a lot of viewers from Georgia and the Carolinas begging for winter weather, and I'm with you, man. I really want it to. So we'll talk about what we need and really dissect the setup for next week and talk about what's needed to get winter weather for areas that might not be showing it right now. So if you guys have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. And if anybody has anything that I can pray about or pray over, please put it in the comments below. I do have a cat behind me on the bed. So if you see any movement, that's Rocket, my cat. And if you hear any loud noises, I have just about every kid in the neighborhood in my house right now. So yeah, let's get rocking and rolling. So this is the latest watches, warnings, advisories, etc. So I'm going to zoom in here. This system's going to crank up here also. We got winter weather advisories for South Dakota, Nebraska. Once you start to get into Kansas, this purple area, that's blizzard warnings. Winter storm warnings surrounding it. Okay, I don't. This is a new site. Weather-wise, I'm not sure what the difference is between this pink, and I think it's just because this pink still has winter storm watches technically, and this is just a flat-out winter storm warning. But anyways, this pinkish purple color, that's winter storm warnings. This purple color is winter weather advisories. What's wild is we've had winter weather advisories extended all the way down to Oklahoma now, back here into western Colorado. But this red, folks, that is blizzard warnings. Wichita, Topeka, Manhattan. You got blizzard warnings just north of Kansas City. You guys technically in Kansas City have winter storm warnings. St. Joseph, winter storm warnings. We got, once we start to move east, we get away from the blizzard warnings. They're in the red. And then now Springfield, you have winter weather advisories, but a county to your north, winter storm warnings. A county to your east, ice storm warnings. So in this dark purplish color right here, those are ice storm warnings for like the Mark Twain National Forest down here and just southeastern southern areas of Missouri. All this pink color right here, pinkish purple color, St. Louis winter storm warnings, Bloomington, just winter weather advisories. And we just continue to progress, and all the even northern counties of Arkansas, folks, have winter weather advisories now. And then every single far northern county except the far northeast county now has winter weather advisories. Clarksville, Cookeville, and the northern Cumberland Plateau, all the way down to Knoxville, Morristown. You guys have winter weather advisories now. We go back up to Kentucky. The entire northern half of Kentucky has winter storm warnings. Indianapolis, winter storm warnings. And then the southern half of Ohio does have winter storm warnings. Columbus, you had that winter weather advisory, but you still got a winter storm watch too. So you could upgrade to a winter storm warning. And Most of West Virginia is under a winter storm warning, except up here near Wheeling, the northern kind of panhandle of West Virginia. You do not have winter storm warnings. And look at this. I mean, winter storm warnings now in Boone, winter weather advisories in like Wilkesboro, North Carolina, the far northern counties in North Carolina. You have some sort of winter weather alert in almost every single county in Virginia except like Norfolk and Virginia Beach area. You got winter storm warnings up in Washington, D.C. Richmond now has winter storm warnings. Okay, and now we just hanging on to winter storm watches. Let's see if there's been an upgrade to this. Let's upgrade it. Let's see if there's been any changes. Come on. No changes. So winter storm watches for the far southern counties of PA. I could see you guys upgrading to obviously winter weather advisories at least, but some winter storm warnings. Philadelphia, only a winter storm watch right now. Dover, same thing. But I think definitely down here in Delaware and these sections of Maryland, and even southern New Jersey is going to get winter storm warnings before it's all said and done. So what's going on with the storm system right now? The moisture hasn't really got going. It is, you've had like reports of freezing rain in Kansas today. Some of this is falling as snow. Some of this area where you're seeing the blue, this is actually freezing rain. But you've been just getting a little bit of moisture out here. We do have a little bit of snow that looks like it's falling in areas of Nebraska. And here's a piece of northern stream energy up here. But the moisture has not really blossomed yet. You're getting some light winter weather, but nothing too crazy. It's really going to get going in the morning. And that's exactly when we're going to start this off. So this is tomorrow morning. If you're wondering about time frames, here it is. JAN 5, 12Z Sunday. That stands for tomorrow morning. So the moisture really begins to blossom overnight into tomorrow morning. So I think we could still be dealing with some mixing issues in like Kansas City for a while, but just north of Kansas City, it is ripping snow, very strong winds as you have a deepening low pressure. It's one thing I haven't really showed much is wind gusts, and that's been my fault, but I'll try to show it here in a second. But in the pink, that's freezing rain, and the orange, that's sleet. The blue is snow. You keep this going, we get into tomorrow afternoon, just an all-out snowstorm in the northern sections of Missouri. Any kind of frozen, like wintry precipitation switches to all-out snow in Kansas City, Topeka, and pretty much almost all of eastern Kansas. Still dealing with very heavy snow in southeastern Nebraska. And then look at the just flat-out ice storm that's taken over southern Illinois, southern Indiana, and areas of Kentucky, which we'll talk more about here in a second. But, Kansas City straddling that. It looks like you start out as snow, but could you just deal with a whole lot of mixing issues? You very well could. But this continues to move through, and then I definitely think everybody in Missouri will at least end with some snow, could dump an additional few inches, and then this heads on out. Now, what about these wind gusts? Let's back it up here. Wind gust, let's go to the National Weather Service forecast with the wind gust here. Come on. And we'll take out this projected wind gust swath. Look in this area right in here. This is between now and tomorrow midday. I mean, I'll try to zoom into this. States, Kansas. You could get 30 to 40 mile per hour wind gusts where it is snowing very hard. I mean, it's going to be snowing down here too in southern Kansas. 40, 50 mile per hour wind gusts are possible. So it's a blizzard. I mean, even looking into Missouri here, very strong winds. Right where you're going to get several inches of snow, almost a foot of snow in northern Missouri. 30, maybe as much as 40 mile per hour wind gusts. So this is serious, guys. Now let's switch it over to the eastern U.S. and the evolution of this. We'll start off tomorrow morning, same thing. We'll start to take it to about midday. Boom. All-out winter storm really cranks up and really starts cranking midday tomorrow across the entire state of Kentucky, southern Indiana, the southern half of Illinois. We have freezing rain falling in the pink. In the northern counties of Tennessee initially tomorrow, the Cumberland Plateau dealing with freezing rain for a period of time. We take it to the next frame. It's around 3 to 4 o'clock. Some areas in northern Kentucky that start out as snow could begin to mix with freezing rain. For example, like Cincinnati could start out as snow, but then quickly switch to a period of freezing rain. And then we take it all the way until about the middle of the night tomorrow night. So it's like 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock in the morning. Heavy snow in southern Ohio. Looks like some heavy snow starts to get up into Indianapolis, and it's all snow in Indianapolis, all snow up here in Dayton, Columbus, and then this starts to nose into the DC area. Let's back it up one frame right here. This will be interesting tomorrow afternoon and evening. You very well could get a wintry mix as far south as like Greensboro, Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Not showing up very well in like the global models, but it definitely could happen. But by the time we get in the middle of the night tomorrow night, we got Just basically a huge amount of snow going right towards the DC, Baltimore area, northern VA, northern West Virginia. How far north does it get into southern PA? That's a big question, but as we're waking up Monday morning, it looks like this low pressure begins to warm nose western Virginia, eastern Kentucky, and then southern West Virginia. Brings a lot of warm air to the surface, warm air aloft, and it kind of saves you from a really long duration period of freezing rain. But areas of northern Kentucky, you're just going to stay on the colder side, it looks like. But this has really turned into a major winter storm for the state of Virginia, I want to add. Just a nasty mixed bag of precipitation. And to keep this going, and this stays all snow from most of the Delmarva, gets a period of light snow all the way up to New York City midday Monday. And then as this is pulling out, and I do think some light snow can make it to southern New England. I do. But as this is pulling out, I still think we could get a burst of snow in the mid-Atlantic, maybe even the northern counties in North Carolina, right as this is pulling out. So this is like Monday night, and we could have some leftover energy kind of, maybe drifting around as far south as northeast North Carolina. So that's the timeline of that. Let's start to dig down to these snow totals. So we're going to start on Nebraska. This is the latest from a few hours ago in Nebraska. 4:18 to be exact, Central Time. So, 4 to 6 inches. It looks like they've increased snowfall across Nebraska. You're getting just a lot of 4 to 6 inch snowfall totals now across central Nebraska. Even, western Nebraska, 3 to 4, 4 to 6. Grand Island going for 4 to 6 now. Lincoln, 4 to 6. Omaha, just 2 to 3. Falls City, 12 to 18. See how the totals begin to dramatically increase in southern and southeast Nebraska? That's likely because of a band of snow that's going to be very tight gradient, kind of a big time tight gradient of snow here. Now, if you're talking about ice, I think a few 100ths of an inch of ice could fall in these areas, but I don't think this is going to be a big deal. I think 95% of the storm is going to be snow in Nebraska. Now, we continue to move south to Kansas. It's going to be a crippling winter storm for the state of Kansas. Topeka, I think you're good for at least 8 to 12 inches of snow. Norton, 6 to 8. Dodge City, probably 4 to 6. Greensburg, 4 to 6. Wichita, 3 to 4. 3 to 4. Hutchinson, I think Hutchinson's like right in here somewhere. You could get upwards to a half a foot of snow. Emporia, 4 to 6. Lawrence, 6 to 8. Atchison, I think I've already said that. They got a lot of weird towns that I've never really heard of in Kansas. Definitely not household names besides Wichita and yeah. So this is going to be a high impact system. Obviously, if you live in the northeastern portion of the state, even the central portion of the state, this is going to wallop you guys. And this is when icing becomes a big deal. This is ice totals mixed in. Actually, ice totals have dropped somewhat in here. And I would say this is because some of this has already fell. But still going for an additional quarter to almost half inch in this area in red. Wichita, another 1/10 of an inch of ice. Emporia, maybe another 1/4 inch. Outside of those areas, not that much. Greensburg, maybe another 1 to 2/10 of an inch of ice. So, certainly need to watch. Now, Iowa, this would be all snow, but you got to get down to the southern sections of the state. Far southern counties could get anywhere from 6 to 12 inches of snow. Des Moines, inch or less. So if you're a big snow fan of Des Moines, you're probably punching air because you're just not going to get a lot off this. Burlington, 3 to 4. Crescent, 3 to 4. You're just going to have this crazy gradient of heavy snow that's probably going to set up in southern Iowa. I'm not expecting much ice at all in Iowa, but we go down to Missouri. This is going to be one of your most high impact states, no doubt about it. Basically, the entire southern section of Missouri, and hopefully you can see this well. Good for anywhere from 6 to as much as somebody could get 20 inches of snow. Kansas City going to 8 to 14. St. Joseph, 12 to 19 inches of snow, and you have blizzard warnings. This corridor of orange, that's anywhere from 10 to 18 inches of snow. Kirksville, 7 to 13. Maryville, 10 to 15. You go down to the Interstate 70 corridor. This is when you start to introduce ice in the picture. But Columbia, Missouri, 6 to 12 inches of snow. 5 to 10 in St. Louis. Troy, 7 to 14. You get south, 3 to 6 in Hillsboro. Jefferson City, 4 to 8. And even going from 1 to 2 inches of snow in Springfield. And I think a lot of this will fall in the back end of the system. We'll see what happens. But I really think once you get south of Interstate, once you get along Interstate 44, down Interstate 55, and in this area, this is when the ice becomes a serious deal. And speaking of ice, this is what it looks like. Crippling ice. Centerfield going for upwards potentially over 3/4 of an inch of ice. Folks, I've said this many times since covering the storm. Anytime you get over a 1/4 inch of ice, that's when it starts to cause big issues. Like, I mean, the sagging of tree limbs, the snapping of tree limbs on the power outages, on the power lines, to cause power outages. You're going to get a lot of mass power outages. And it's really once you get south of the Interstate 70 corridor, that's when you run into big icing issues. Springfield to St. Louis, if you're traveling through this area, crippling ice storm is expected. Clinton, 3/10 of an inch of ice. Farmington, over a 1/2 inch of ice. Big area of ice in southern, really the south central Missouri. You head over to Illinois. Now we're going to flip through some frames here, but it's pretty obvious south central Illinois is going to be hit the hardest with the snow. Interstate 72 over to connecting to Interstate 55. I mean, yeah, Pittsfield 10 to 18, Jacksonville 8 to 16, Springfield 8 to 15 inches of snow, Lincoln 5 to 11, Bloomington 3 to 8. Peoria 2 to 6, some very wide, wonky ranges up here, but it just goes to show you that it's a tricky one. But just taking a more broad look at these snowfall totals, 1 to 3 in Chicago, and I know this is kind of scrawny, but east of St. Louis 4 to 9, Mount Vernon 3 to 8, Effingham 7 to 13, Marion 2 to 5. So this is just another way to look at it. Now your ice is going to be a big deal. Southern sections, not widespread in the state. Hopefully you can see this well. Mount Vernon points south in Illinois, crippling ice. 1/4 inch of Mount Vernon. Marion, over a 1/2 inch. Paducah, over 3/10 of an inch of ice is forecast. Anything over a 1/2 inch, a 1/4 inch is a big, big deal. Over a 1/2 inch is a crippling ice storm. Over to Indiana. Zoomed in look at first. Indianapolis going for 6 to 12 in their latest update. This could change overnight, quick. Greencastle 6 to 12, Crawfordsville 3 to 8, Lafayette 2 to 5, Columbus 7 to 12, Greensburg 7 to 12, and hopefully you can see Bloomington 7 to 12. You can see your town name on here. And once again, we'll kind of look at like a more wider look. And once you start to get into northern Indiana, if you're a snow fan, kind of like what I mentioned with Iowa, you're going to be punching air because you're just not going to get a lot from this. Evansville, anywhere from 2 to 6 inches of snow mixed with a crippling amount of ice. So Indianapolis down to Jasper, Indiana, that's where you're going to be a worst snowstorm. What about ice? Ice forecast, here it is. Southern, when was this updated? About several hours ago, so they might be coming up with a new graphic soon, but still going for a 1/4 to a 1/2 inch of ice in Evansville, Jasper, same thing. Salem, 1/10 to a 1/4 inch. Once you get to the far southern counties of Indiana, this is when you're going to run into huge deals with ice, a huge deal with ice. Now let's go over to Ohio. This does show a clip of northern Kentucky, but a zoomed in look at like Cincinnati, 6 to 8 inches of snow in Cincinnati, big storm. Wilmington 8 to 13, Columbus 6 to 8, Springfield 6 to 8, Dayton 8 to 12, Georgetown 8 to 12. Big storm for sure for you folks. This is going to be your biggest storm in years in these areas, which is pretty wild because this is not an uncommon thing, but you just have not gotten it yet lately. Now this is a wide look at Ohio, Cleveland 3 inches, Columbus. This is going for more exact totals. Actually, these are the updated totals. So Columbus, they're going for like exact totals, 4 inches. Cincinnati 7, Wilmington 7, Jackson 10. So yeah. Northern, southern sections of Ohio, that is where you're going to get certainly your most snow. And you're going to get a little bit of ice in the southern sections. And let's look at another view of this here. Southern sections of Ohio, definitely going to get a few 107-inch of ice. Once you get really close to the most southern section of Ohio, that's when you can get over a 1/4 inch. And that's when the ice is going to mix with the snow and be dangerous. Dangerous. Been struggling saying the word dangerous lately. But anyways, Kentucky, what we looking at here? Northern Kentucky, you're going to get an all-out snowstorm. You're going to mix with ice too. But Covington, 7 to 13. Lexington, 4 to 8. Frankfort, 5 to 10. Louisville, 5 to 10 inches. They might have an upgrade graphic with this. Let's see. No, they don't. Let's see. Nope. So same graphic here. This was several hours ago, back at like around 2 p.m. Eastern time. But Jackson 2 to 5, Pikeville 2 to 4, London 1 to 2, and Owensboro 2 to 5, Elizabethtown 2 to 5 inches. Now between Kentucky and Missouri, I don't know who's going to get the worst, but these are definitely the two states that are going to see the worst with the ice. If you live around Interstate 64 in Kentucky, crippling. I mean, some would use the word catastrophic. I'm not going to use that, but this is going to be a crippling ice storm around that area. Louisville's going for, what's crazy with Louisville is they're going for several inches of snow, but they're also calling for a half inch to 3/4 of an inch of ice. I'm telling you, if that ends up happening, for example, with the last graphic I just showed you, here's an example here. Louisville, 5 to 10 inches of snow with a half inch to 3/4 of an inch of ice. If that ends up happening, Louisville is going to be y'all guys will be staying at home for the majority of the week next week. No doubt about it. Elizabethtown, half inch to 3/4 of an inch of ice. And not as much the southern counties of Kentucky, but a 1/10 to 1/4 inch of ice in, say, Bowling Green, Hopkinsville, London. That's still a big deal. That's still a lot of ice. Jackson, 1/4 to a half inch. So crippling amounts of ice in Kentucky. National Weather Service out of like Nashville for Tennessee. Could get a little glaze of ice in Nashville. Clarksville, a little bit more of a glaze, 1/10 of an inch. Lafayette, over 1/10 of an inch. Crossville, 1/10. Jamestown, a little over 1/10 of an inch of ice. And maybe a little bit of snow. Maybe an inch or less of snow. Not expecting much. The rest of Tennessee to the east, you guys along the Cumberland Plateau in Tennessee certainly can get upwards to 1/10 of an inch of ice at most. That's enough to see a glaze and put a light glaze on elevated surfaces, cold surfaces. And then, this is the snow forecast. I think you guys in extreme northeastern, especially if you're higher up, Tennessee could get a burst of snow sometime tomorrow. And you could get enough to make the ground white. And then, in terms of freezing rain, maybe sleet, and then you go to rain, I think the warm nose is going to hit this area pretty good. So, what about West Virginia? Latest update from about an hour or so ago. Morgantown, 8 inches. Flatwoods, 8. Charleston going for 5. Logan, 4. Huntington, 6. Beckley, now 4. Snowshoe, 9. Elkins, 11. Cumberland and Maryland, 7 inches of snow. Petersburg, 8 inches. Martinsburg, 6 inches of snow. Now, I'm sorry, we need to look at ice. Might be. Ice for West Virginia, pretty bad, guys. Charleston, if you really do get Charleston, West Virginia, if you get 5 inches of snow and 3 to 4/10 of an inch of ice, that's going to hit you hard, buddy. And I'm talking about my guy that lives around Charleston, West Virginia. He says they kind of get screwed over a lot with winter storms. You definitely are going to get warm nose, but I just wonder how much snow you're going to get initially. But Huntington, almost a half inch of ice forecast. Beckley, a few inches of snow with over 3/10 of an inch of ice. Snowshoe, even going for a 1/4 inch of ice. So definitely some hefty ice totals in these areas forecasted. And then PA, it looks like southwestern sections of PA is going to get the most in those higher elevated regions of the Allegheny Mountains. But Pittsburgh, 3 to 8. Uniontown, 6 to 12. Jamestown, 4 to 10. You get up to Scranton, Binghamton, and New York, not as much, but still some wide ranges that they're going for. And southeastern PA, like 1 to 4 in Harrisburg, Gettysburg, 3 to 7, Lancaster, however way y'all pronounce it. We have a Lancaster in South Carolina too, but the locals say Lancaster, not Lancaster. But Allenton, 2 inches or less. Philadelphia going for around 1 to 4 inches of snow. Not expecting much ice in PA. I don't even think they had a graphic up. No, they've been jipping us on the graphic. You definitely will get a little bit. But New Jersey, areas of New Jersey. Southern New Jersey is going to get 6 to 8 inches of snow. Atlantic City going for 6 to 8. Philadelphia, 3 to 4. Trenton, 2 to 3. Wilmington, 4 to 6. Dover, 8 to 12 inches of snow. So I know I got some people tuning in from the Delmarva area. Congratulations. It looks like you guys are going to get a nice storm out of this. Bethany Beach, Cape May, 4 to 6 to 6 to 8. So definitely a heavy hitter in this area. And latest information from the D.C. area. Let's make sure we got the latest info. They do a great job, National Weather Service, out of this area of upgrading frequently. But Baltimore, 6 to 8. D.C., 6 to 8. Warrenton, 6 to 8. Winchester, 6 to 8 inches of snow. Charlottesville, crazy, up to 4 to 6 inches now. Fredericksburg, 6 to 8 inches of snow is forecasted. Hagerstown, 4 to 6. Hefty snowstorm in this area. How much ice? D.C. to Baltimore, and this area right here up in Maryland, I don't think you'll get much ice. But once you get into Charlottesville, 4 to 6, what do they call them? 4 to 6 inches of snow in Charlottesville with a tenth to a quarter inch of ice. That's a major winter storm. That's going to cause huge issues. So the further south you get, the more ice you run into in VA. And then you look in the National Weather Service in Southwest and Blacksburg, Southwest VA, Roanoke, Blacksburg going for around an inch of snow. Lexington, 3 inches. Lewisburg, 3 to 4 inches of snow. Wytheville, inch of snow. Lynchburg, inch or two of snow. Ice, definitely a big deal. Roanoke, Blacksburg, same thing, around a quarter inch, maybe a little less, more. Boone going for around a tenth of an inch. And if you live in this red area, folks, that's potential for a quarter inch of ice. And I mean, even getting into, outside the higher elevations, I mean, Danville could get over a tenth of an inch of ice. So, and then we'll round it off with this. What about southeast areas of VA? This is kind of an area that's kind of gotten into this as of late. Richmond going for around 4 inches of snow now. Petersburg, 2.5. Williamsburg, 2 inches. Norfolk going for an inch of snow. So we'll see if that actually happens. That's what the National Weather Service forecast is calling for. Even for a little bit of snow down here. And I think they're saying this now because of that little back end snow that I talked about when I broke down the timing of the storm. But Richmond, I mean, you get a couple inches of snow mixed with a tenth of an inch of ice, and that's enough to pump out a winter storm warning, in my opinion. So if you live in this kind of orange shaded color, the potential is there for over a tenth of an inch of ice, a little bit of a glaze south and east of that. So, that's a mouthful, guys. Thankfully, these videos are going to get shorter and shorter as we get this winter storm that I just broke down out of the way. But updated information on this winter storm threat for the South. This is absolutely a winter storm threat for the South. Absolutely. So let's start off with the Euro, and then we'll go to the GFS. And we're going to speak about the Southern Plains, South Central U.S. first. This is Tuesday afternoon. We got light moderate snow coming down off the Rockies. Energy diving down here. Light snow falling and pretty cold temperatures. Really shallow, cold air across western Texas, New Mexico. And then we start to get into Thursday morning. If you're confused about our time frame here, Thursday 9, the 9th down here. Okay, so we're getting a wintry mix breaking out across areas of New Mexico, western Texas, etc. Now, this is the latest 18Z Euro. It's only going to go out 144 hours out, but you continue to get this going. We take it to Thursday night, January the 9th. We got snow breaking out. Oh, we got 2 cats in here. So, all right, cool. If you see any movement, it's just a cat. I'm going to try to stay focused. But, this is the Dallas-Fort Worth area right here. Based off the latest Euro, you're getting a snow event. But it looks like you start to mix. But there's no point in getting super exact here. We're going to bounce back and forth. But we go all the way to Friday morning. We have a winter storm over North Texas that does include the Dallas-Fort Worth area, especially points west. It's all rain in the green. Blue is the snow. Pink is freezing rain. Orange is the sleet. And then in the southern areas of Oklahoma, it's snowing like crazy. And then you keep going, and we go to the final frame. This takes us to midday Friday, January the 10th. Little Rock getting winter storm. This is moving into Memphis. Southern areas of Arkansas, this is all rain. Louisiana, this would be all rain. And it is snowing back in western Texas still. Now, we have to switch it back and go to the 18Z run here because, it looks like, first thing I notice is the timing is slower. But the 12Z Euro is definitely a lot more moisture initially when I look at it, and it's just a faster storm system. So winter storm's moving in. It looks like a big winter storm for Memphis, and then it moves on out. But just to kind of go back through this is the European drop just a huge winter storm in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, for example, to Little Rock. And then that moves out, and then we're done with it. Okay, so the old reliable Euro drops a major winter storm in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, surrounding areas. What about the latest GFS? Here it comes. Looks a little bit different. We're getting into Wednesday midday. We got moisture in central Texas in the form of a wintry mix, some light snow breaking out. We start to get into Thursday morning. Here comes the moisture, just like the Euro. Looks a little bit further north. We're getting a wintry mix in the pink and the orange, and we keep this going. And the Euro is almost a total whiff for the Dallas-Fort Worth area. It's a little bit warmer, and it gets the moisture going a little bit further to the east. It is definitely a winter weather event for, say, the Dallas-Fort Worth area, but we continue to keep this going. All rain for Shreveport, Houston, Austin. And I can tell you, as far as some of those scenarios where we're showing like winter weather deep down in Texas, we've definitely trended warmer for you folks. But the latest GFS is barely keeping it snow. and like Little Rock initially, but then we get into, say, Friday morning. This is an all-out winter storm from the Texarkana area, southeast Oklahoma, central Arkansas. This is some heavy snow moving into Springfield, Missouri. The Boot Hill, Missouri would get into this. Memphis, Tennessee, and western Tennessee, western Kentucky. This would turn to a big winter storm. We're really amping this up now. And then some back-end moisture could follow behind it. So that's the latest Euro and the GFS. What about the Euro Ensemble? What is this showing? Let's look at the latest 18Z. The latest 18Z, no, let's look at the 12Z first. 12Z run, folks. Remember, this is a 96-hour period, so 4-day period. So, and I'm doing this because you can see the winter storm that we just broke down kind of disappear, and then the next threat materializing. Here it comes. Look at this ensemble mean. Remember, the Euro Ensemble makes up about 50 runs, throws them all together, all those members together, and creates an average. So if a number of those members don't show any snow, okay. A number of the members show a big winter storm, okay. And then another round of those members show a lighter event. You kind of average all those together, just like in school, and creates a mean or an average. And the average of the Euro Ensemble from this afternoon is over 5 inches of snow in the Dallas area, central Texas. I mean, it's a pretty nice average if you're a snow fan, all the way down to Austin, southeast Oklahoma, even into north, kind of the Shreveport area. Certainly a solid signal for Arkansas into Memphis. Hefty signal. Now, what about the latest, say, 18Z that's running? This doesn't go through the length of the storm, but it looks like it's just doing it again. Another big-time signal off the 18Z. It doesn't even look like it really changed. That is a huge signal. Let's see if it shifted south from that frame. Yeah, it shifted south. So that's a little tick south on the 18Z Euro, which would be good for even areas further to the east, down east from this storm. So you definitely have a tick. Let's make sure I'm looking at it right. Yeah, you definitely got a tick south. So that's interesting. But it only goes 144 hours out. All right, so the latest GFS Ensemble, it's not as crazy with this, and it kind of follows its operational run. And same thing, you're going to see all the snow up here disappear, and here comes the signal emerging next week. So, I mean, that's still a solid signal, okay, but it's not as crazy as the Euro and its ensemble. And it really likes the heart of Texas for a 2.5, 3-inch snowfall mean. But the Dallas-Fort Worth area, for example, in this one, northern Texas, northeast Texas, southeast Oklahoma, central Arkansas over to Memphis, about an inch to a 2-inch snowfall average out of all these members. So it's definitely not as loud with this, but it's certainly there. I'm telling you, that is a pretty solid signal for a winter storm, though. So let's talk about the southeast now, and we are going to include you folks in the northeast too, so just bear with me. The southeast signal, this is the final frame off the 18Z Euro, okay? This is as far out as we can go. And you already have a winter storm moving into the Memphis area, northern Mississippi. Now, we don't know what's going to happen after this frame, but you definitely got a storm starting to move in. Now, what we have to do here now is flip it back to the 12Z. And I can already tell you guys is that's a little bit further north and amped up. So it looks like to me that the 18Z has trended a little bit south, which tells me there's a little bit more cold air involved. But let's continue to finish the 12Z run. It turns into a major winter storm for northern areas of Tennessee, Kentucky. Again, I mean, your last winter weather stuff wouldn't even have a chance to melt if this is true. It has an icing event for northern Georgia, mostly rain for Alabama. And then for the cold air damming areas of the western Carolinas, like even the Great Greenville, Spartanburg area, northeast Georgia, as we're getting into the overnight hours of next Friday into Saturday, Charlotte, almost all the way to Raleigh, we have an ice storm developing. And then it's heavy snow in the mountains. This would turn into a huge winter weather event, potentially for like the mid-Atlantic, snow to ice. And then we have an interesting thing that we're seeing in models where it wants to develop another low. And that's just something to watch. And the GFS is really going to show this. So it's almost like it wants to kind of throw back some more moisture. And this tries to give some people like in Atlanta some back-end snow on this. We've seen this in the models a little bit. And then, it begins to head on out. That's it. What about the latest GFS run? Here it comes. All right. And we'll stop it here. No, we'll stop it right there. That's about next Friday morning. Big time ice that's beginning to surge into the northern sections of Alabama, the Cumberland Plateau of Tennessee. Big winter storm beginning to move into Tennessee. Memphis, all snow. Look at this period of snow starting to move. Ice into Georgia. Period of snow starting to move into the upstate of South Carolina, western North Carolina. And all of a sudden it turns into an all-out winter storm in the triad of North Carolina, the upstate of South Carolina. So, if you follow me on Twitter, social media, you know that, I've been a little bummed out today. Okay, but I'm telling you, even in some of the warmer scenarios like this is still a major winter storm or significant winter weather event for areas even of the Carolinas. This is mainly rain along the I-20 corridor. But this is a big winter storm up the Mississippi Valley back here. And this turns into just a nasty icing event for North Carolina. That pink, that is freezing rain next Friday evening if this is the way it materializes. And then it goes on, and two things happen. It goes on to continue to be very amped up and become a big winter storm for the Northeast. And then we have this just back-end moisture where we have snow, light to moderate snow that breaks out across the mid and even areas of deep south. And check out the rain that switches to snow all the way back to Atlanta, Birmingham. That's something to watch as it tries to develop a low at the tail end of this. Now, I do want to show you folks also like the GFS with the Northeast. This is something to watch. All of a sudden, we went from, okay, there was no storm to this amped up massive winter storm now showing, and this isn't a forecast, showing for the Northeast. So if something like this was to materialize, this would turn into, that would be a blizzard for New York City into southern New England. That is a 972 millibar low, and that is extremely heavy snow, and that would be your classic nor'easter next weekend for the Northeast. That is something to absolutely watch. And listen, I mean, if you go in and you look at the Euro with this, it kind of does something very similar. Not quite as crazy, but the European comes up and turns into a pretty big winter storm for the Northeast, but you get mainly rain for areas of the I-95 corridor. That's the difference there. So as far as the totals, and we'll speak more on the Northeast as we go. For my folks in the Northeast, if this continues to show something up there, I will get more and more detail for you folks. I know I skimmed through that pretty quick. But the latest information as far as snowfall, the snowfall signal for the Euro ensemble for the Southeast, here it comes. Same thing. It's in 4-day increments, 96-hour period. So you'll see all that snow to the north disappear. And here comes the signal off the Euro ensemble. As you can tell, you can see the footprint of where it likes this winter weather to go. Starting in the southern plains, goes across the Mississippi Valley, and then across the mid-south. That's where your heaviest signal is. But you still have a signal for snow in areas of Mississippi, Alabama, northern Georgia, even South Carolina, and North Carolina. The signal is there. And one thing you can't see on the Euro ensemble is really the ice. I could pull it up off Pivotal Weather, but I'm not going to do that right now. But there would probably be an ice storm potential for the Western Carolinas, maybe even northern Alabama and northern Georgia. That's not showing up. This is only showing snow. So I'd watch out, like, I don't know, maybe this area right here for ice. I mean, I would definitely watch this area right here for ice. One thing that I've not mentioned much in video that I think is going to have a player on this is the fact that you switch it back to, say, this, the GFS. You see how it shows ice right here? One thing that we're going to have working with us is we're going to have a lot of snowpack and winter weather on the ground north of this system. It's going to be very cold prior to this system. And I think models are going to struggle handling what's basically going to be a refrigerator to the north. And I think the models could potentially fail with how much cold air is really working into the system. That's something to just think about. But you look at the the GFS ensemble, and here it is. 4-day periods. It looks a little bit, you can see that there's some suppressed members into this. So there's a couple things I'm seeing here. One is obviously the footprint of winter weather from the southern plains all the way to the mid-south. I mean, you can see that corridor right in here, right? There's some members that are further south, like all the way to Atlanta, Birmingham, Jackson, to Columbia. Like a half-inch snowfall mean in Columbia. Almost an inch snowfall mean in Charlotte. And then you see this area right here that's a little bit darker grade. You start to get closer to an inch. To me, that symbolizes that there's the potential here for maybe another low to develop. Something to watch. Now, I do want to jump back to the GFS ensemble and show you the latest 18Z. Now, this is coming in play. Remember, this only goes out to 144 hours out. The storm system is just starting in like areas of the southeast. So I want to compare this with a run earlier, see if what changes. Can you see that change? It's a slight tick. So 18Z, the latest run, latest information, and then the earlier run. You see how the area of snow kind of shifted north? And I'm catching this on the fly as I'm doing this video. So, by the way. And you see the tick? You see the tick? I mean, you see how the movement comes south? That's interesting to me. That's interesting to me. So, we'll see what kind of ticks we get overnight with that. All right. What do we need? What is going on? How do I put this? What is making, in this case, because it seems like it's happened a lot lately, what is making the southern plains, the south central U.S. get snow? For example, you would think that if the Dallas area is getting a winter storm, you would think that that would translate to Atlanta getting a winter storm, Birmingham getting a winter storm, heck, even Columbia to Charlotte. There's a saying that I've heard, and I'm sure a lot of people have different opinions on this, but one saying that I've heard a lot is, when it's snowing and when it's snowing in Dallas, that's good news for areas to the east along the I-20 corridor. That you got a winter storm coming in the next 24 hours or 48 hours. Lately, that has not been the case. So, for example, in the GFS, what is preventing an I-20 winter storm from Dallas, say all the way to Atlanta to Columbia? Okay, from areas in the far south. Well, what's happening here is energy is diving down. Okay, this is what we've been talking about a lot. Energy is diving down here. This is our energy. This is our. Well, let's back it up a little bit. I don't want to confuse you. I'll confuse myself. Be careful. One thing you'll see here is I'll stop it right here. This is our main Baja low, our main southern stream energy. You see this little area right here in blue? That is a piece of northern stream energy that phases with that southern stream energy. They connect right here. Now, as they connect, they phase together. They turn into a pretty amped up system, pretty strong low pressure. Okay? As it's doing so, this is our cold air feed right here. You see this big blob of green and blue? That is a trough. That is throwing a lot of cold air press down into this area right here. And that cold air press can feed this low pressure, which we're getting tons of moisture coming in this area. Okay, it feeds it right here. Now, what happens here as we progress forward, watch how as this moves in, this moves out. You see how our cold air supply is moving away as our system is moving in? It's saying, all right, I'm out. Right when our system comes in. What this does two things. It provides a cold air supply into the system. Okay, and it also helps to sort of keep this system down. Kind of suppressive heights, if you will. It kind of keeps our low pressure kind of going this way or even down here. As this is moving away, one thing's going on. I talk about this in hurricane season. A stronger storm system is going to want to gain latitude. It's the same thing with breaking down winter storm systems. It's going to want to just get further north. So if there's nothing holding this down, it's going to phase, become a stronger system, and immediately start to tilt negatively. And then all of a sudden, you got an amped up storm system. Your cold air supply is leaving. Your main cold air supply is leaving. You still have cold air, but it's just kind of running away from us. We don't need that to happen. Once upon a time, we had this trough anchored out over here with this low pressure moving in. That was creating a lot of big fantasy runs across the southeast. Basically, we had this blue connecting right here. We had this connection, and we're just not getting that. Now, I want to show you the icon model. Starting off in the same time frame. It's different. Icon is not a very reliable model, by the way, but it shows what we need. Okay, you get this Baja low, this low pressure here. You see the trough right here? You see how the blues are connecting the lower pressure? That tells you already what's different here. Okay, and I'm going to take it all the way out to the end of the run. This is 120 hours out. This is as far out as this run as the icon goes. This is all the way out to Thursday afternoon. You can already see the difference here. See if looking at it a little bit closer will work. You can already, let's just look at it further out. You can already see a difference here. This extension of the trough is way over here. Low pressure, still around the same spot, but your cold air supply is plentiful now, going into with this moisture going into this cold air supply. There's a connection here, and you can just see there's something better working here. Cold air is getting thrown back into this area, and you can even see the connection in blue. It even helps you out in the colors, right? Now you look at 120 hours out on the GFS. You can see there's actually a ridge flex right in here. And there's a clear separation between the low pressure and the cold air supply in the trough off to the northeast. So you look at that, you compare it with this, you see the difference. You see the difference? That connection there, that makes all the difference in the world. It does. And you can actually see it really good here. I don't know if it's going to let me look at upper temperatures. And we're going to take a zoomed in because we just got a little bit of time to fart around with this. You see this is... All right, once you get into this white shaded color right here, that's 0 degrees Celsius. So once it goes to that kind of bluish purple to white right here, that's 0 degrees Celsius. So that is the freezing line, 32 degrees, about 4,000 to 6,000 feet up in the air, give or take 1,000 feet. Okay, so you look at this. Same thing, I'm going to go this and then look at that. And you compare it with this, you look at that. You see the difference here? You see how I mean, the 0 degrees Celsius line is far south, but you can see there's not near as much cold air right here. And then I want you to see the difference with this. You see how it presses down this way? See how it's going like this? See, it's like pressing that way more. Okay, that is a much better cold air supply, and it correlates well with the trough I just showed you. Now you look at the GFS, you see how that kind of retracts back that way? That is a huge difference there. Massive difference. And at the end of the day, if we're going to get a phasing low pressure, if we're going to get this to happen, which is obvious that this is what it wants to do, if we're going to phase this just like this is going to turn into a phased out system, we got to have a better cold air supply to bog this system south and to feed cold air into it. So if you want winter weather, all this moisture could potentially be winter weather for your house. Woo, that's all I got. Thank y'all for tuning in. Let's see what we're working with in the morning. God bless and stay safe.